Good evening, folks. As part of my mission to make reports in Word more readable, I'm going to share with you 3 tips to improve the appearance of your tables. Tip number 1, fix the table properties. I have no idea why Word doesn't enable these by default, but every time I've included a table in a Word document, I've had to change these settings. Nearly all tables in a professional report look better if you repeat the header row on each new page, and also if you disallow splitting rows across pages. But first, to repeat the header row, first select the row or rows that you want to form the header of this table. Now, this may already be formatted differently if you've set a table style. But with these rows selected, click on Table Properties and then click on Repeat as Header Row. This will ensure that if Word has to separate your table across a page, that the header of each column goes with the row. It also helps Word prevent orphan rows, a single row appearing on a page by itself. I find it really ugly when some parts of a table spread across to a second page and you, as the reader, need to refer to the previous page to remember what those headings are. Now, speaking of avoiding ugly, I also recommend disabling that a row can split across pages in the first place. To do this, select all the rows in your table except the header row and click Table and Properties again. Now, deselect the Allow Row to Split Across Pages. This stops the ugly situation where you might have one cell that is quite long that creates an orphan white space. Now, if you do have too many narrow cells, consider separating the table, and that is our second tip. So tip number 2, separate tables that have too much information. The ideal table size for a report is 3 to 5 rows long and 2 to 7 columns wide, depending on what data is being shown. For pure text, use less columns. For numerical data, feel free to use a few more. During my time as an engineer, I found that any table longer than this belongs in the appendix to the report. It doesn't belong in the body of the report itself. If you need to include a table in the body of the report, try figuring out a way to summarize it instead. Some of the ways you can summarize a table include contracting the row title information into one cell. Rows often have a series of information that identifies the row. People tend to split these across different columns. You can contract that into one column, into one cell. If one column contains the same information in every row, make that the title of the table and delete the column. There's no point having a column in a table that repeats the same thing over and over again. If there are 2 pieces of information in a column, there are 2 different values in a column, delete that column and make it 2 tables. Each row in a table should be somewhat unique because that's the sort of information you're displaying. Anything else, any calculations, any formula, like I said, from my years as an engineer, belongs in the appendix. The third way you can summarize a table is to look for natural groups of rows, such as rather than listing out a row for Monday, a row for Tuesday, a row for Wednesday, etc., you can say, this is the Monday to Wednesday, this is the Thursday and Friday, and this is the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So that brings us to tip number 3, to avoid justified text in a table. I've heard many people tell me that Word has a bad justification engine. Now, what this means, what they're trying to say, is that when Word tries to apply justification to a paragraph of text, that is to keep the left and the right the left and the right side of the paragraphs in alignment, it can create too much space between words. This is really noticeable when each word is long compared to the length of the line, as what happens in a table. Avoid using justified text in a table. It will create ugly gaps between words that detract from the message you're trying to convey with that table. To ensure the text is not justified, select all the text in the table and then click the Align Left button. Now, the best way to actually do this is with applying styles to the paragraphs inside your table, and that style always be left aligned, but styles are a conversation for another day. And now, doesn't that look much better? Left aligning the text helps Word avoid ugly spaces between words. Do you disagree with my definition of ugly? Let me know in the comments below where you've seen examples of great looking tables that don't follow the tips I've shared in this video. I'd love to show off more examples of great table design in professional reports. Hopefully, I'll see you in that video.